The Vigilant glided through the inky blackness of space, its sleek hull reflecting the distant starlight like a predator lurking in the shadows. Captain Elara Voss stood at the helm, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced ease. The ship was a marvel of engineering, designed for stealth and speed, and it was her home. She felt a familiar thrill as they navigated the treacherous routes of the Outer Rim, a place where danger lurked behind every asteroid and in the hearts of every pirate. "Status report, Jax," she called, her voice steady despite the tension that crackled in the air. Her first mate, Jax Rylan, was hunched over the console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Approaching the designated drop-off point, Captain." "All systems are green," he replied, glancing up with a hint of a smile. "Just another routine delivery, right?" Elara raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a wry smile. "You know better than to tempt fate, Jax. Routine deliveries have a way of turning into anything but." Jax chuckled, but the laughter faded as he returned to his screens. The crew of the Vigilant was a tight-knit group, forged in the fires of countless missions. Each member brought something unique to the table, and Elara had learned to trust their instincts as much as her own. "Captain, I've got a message from the client," called out Mira, the ship's communications officer. She was a sharp-eyed woman with a knack for reading people, and her intuition had saved them more than once. "They're anxious about the cargo. It's more valuable than we thought." Elara turned, her interest piqued. "What's the cargo?" "Advanced tech from the core worlds. They're worried about pirates in the area," Mira replied, her voice steady but laced with concern. "Pirates," Elara echoed, her mind racing. The Outer Rim was notorious for its lawlessness, and the mention of pirates sent a chill down her spine. "We'll need to be on high alert. Jax, plot a course that keeps us away from known pirate routes." "Already on it, Captain," Jax said, his fingers flying over the controls. "But we'll have to cut through the nebula of shadows to avoid detection." "It's risky." "Risky is our middle name," Elara replied, her tone light but her heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. She turned to the crew gathered in the cockpit, their faces a mix of determination and apprehension. "Listen up, everyone. We're carrying a valuable cargo, and we can't afford to let our guard down. Stay sharp, and watch each other's backs." The crew nodded, their expressions resolute. Elara felt a surge of pride. They were more than just a team. They were a family, bound by shared experiences and a common goal. She glanced at the view screen, where the swirling colors of the nebula loomed ahead, a beautiful yet treacherous sight. As they entered the nebula, the ship shuddered slightly, the sensors flickering as the dense clouds of gas interfered with their readings. Elara tightened her grip on the controls, her instincts on high alert. "Jax, keep an eye on the scanners. I don't want any surprises." "Got it, Captain," he replied, his eyes glued to the screen. "But it's going to be hard to see anything in this mess." "Just keep us steady," Elara said, her voice calm. "We'll get through this." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they navigated the swirling mists. The atmosphere in the cockpit was tense, the only sounds the hum of the engines and the occasional beep of the instruments. Elara could feel the weight of her crew's expectations pressing down on her. They were counting on her to lead them safely through the storm. "Captain, I'm picking up something on the scanners," Jack said suddenly, his voice sharp with urgency. "It's faint, but there's a ship nearby. Could be a pirate." Elara's heart raced. "Can you get a visual?" "Not yet. The nebula's interference is too strong," he replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "But it's moving toward us. Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Elara ordered, her mind racing. "Mira, get ready to send a distress signal if we need backup." "Understood," Mira said, her expression serious. "But let's hope it doesn't come to that." The ship lurched as Jax adjusted their course, the nebula swirling around them like a living entity. Elara's instincts screamed at her to be ready for anything. She could feel the tension in the air, The Vigilant trembled as it navigated the dense clouds of the nebula of shadows, the ship's hull vibrating with the tension that hung in the air. Elara Voss stood at the helm, her heart pounding in rhythm with the ship's engines. The dim cockpit was illuminated by the flickering lights of the control panels, casting shadows across the faces of her crew. Each member was focused, their expressions a mix of determination and anxiety. "Captain, the ship is still on our scanners," Jax reported, his voice steady despite the tension. "It's closing in fast. I can't get a clear read on its size or type." "Can you tell if it's hostile?" Ilara asked, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the swirling mists outside the viewport. The nebula was a deceptive veil, hiding dangers that could strike at any moment. "Not yet," Jax replied, his fingers dancing over the controls. "But I'd bet my last credit it's not here for a friendly chat." "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Ilara commanded, her voice firm. "Mira, keep the distress signal ready. We may need it." "Understood," Mira said, her fingers poised over the communication console. "But let's hope it doesn't come to that." The ship lurched again, and Ilara felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. The nebula's interference was making it difficult to see anything beyond a few meters. "Everyone, stay alert. We need to be ready for anything." Just as she finished speaking, the cockpit was suddenly filled with the blaring of alarms. "Incoming fire!" Jax shouted, his eyes wide with shock. "Brace for impact!" Ilara barely had time to react before the Vigilant shuddered violently as a barrage of laser fire struck the ship's shields. The lights flickered, and the crew was thrown against their seats. "Status report," Ilara barked, regaining her composure. "Shields holding at 70%. Jax replied, his voice strained. "But they won't last long if they keep this up." "Return fire," Ilara ordered, her heart racing. "Mira, get us a visual on that ship." "On it." Myra's fingers flew over the controls, and the view screen flickered to life, revealing a sleek, menacing pirate vessel emerging from the nebula's depths. Its hull was dark and angular, designed for intimidation. The ship's insignia, a skull crossed with a laser rifle, was unmistakable. "Zarek Thorn," Ilara muttered under her breath, recognizing the infamous pirate captain. Of course it had to be him. "Captain, they're targeting our engines." Jax shouted, his voice rising in urgency. "We need to move. Engage evasive maneuvers." Ilara commanded, her mind racing. "Jax, take us into the heart of the nebula. We'll use the clouds to our advantage." The Vigilant veered sharply, the ship's engines roaring as Jax executed the maneuver. The cockpit was filled with the sounds of alarms and the distant thrum of laser fire. Ilara gripped the controls, her knuckles white as she fought to keep the ship steady. "Hold on," Jax shouted as they plunged deeper into the swirling mists. The visibility dropped to near zero, and the ship rocked violently as they navigated through the turbulent clouds. "Can you get a lock on their position?" Ilara asked, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Trying," Jax replied, his eyes darting between the controls. "But the nebula's messing with our targeting systems. It's like trying to shoot a moving target in the dark." "Then we'll have to outsmart them," Ilara said, her mind racing. "Mira, can you send a false signal to confuse their sensors?" "Working on it," Mira replied, her fingers flying over the console. "If I can create a decoy signal, it might buy us some time." "Do it," Ilara urged, her heart pounding. "We need every second we can get." As Mira worked, Ilara focused on the ship's controls, guiding the Vigilant through the dense clouds. The alarms continued to blare, but she pushed the noise to the back of her mind, concentrating on the task at hand. The nebula was a treacherous maze, but it was also their best chance for escape. "Decoy signal is live," Mira announced, her voice filled with urgency. "They're picking it up." "Good. Now let's hope it works," Ilara said, her eyes scanning the view screen for any sign of the pursuing ship. The pirate vessel had been relentless, but the nebula's cover was their only hope. Thud. The Vigilant lurched through the swirling mists of the nebula of shadows, the ship's hull vibrating with the tension of the moment. Ilara Voss gripped the controls, her heart racing as she navigated the treacherous terrain. The alarms had quieted, but the threat of Zarek Thorn's pirate ship loomed large in her mind. They had managed to evade detection for now, but she knew it was only a matter of time before the pirates regrouped. "Captain, the decoy signal is holding," Mira reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "They're still chasing it, but I can't guarantee how long it will last." "Let's hope it buys us enough time to regroup," Elara replied, her eyes scanning the view screen for any sign of the enemy. "Jax, what's our status?" "Shields are down to 50%, and we've sustained minor damage to the aft thrusters," Jax said, his fingers flying over the controls. "We can still maneuver, but we need to find a way to turn the tables on them." Elara nodded, her mind racing. "We can't keep running forever. We need a plan to confront Zarek and his crew. If we can't outgun them, we'll have to outsmart them." "Any ideas?" Jax asked, glancing at her with a mix of concern and admiration. "Let's use the Nebula to our advantage," Elara said, her voice firm. "We'll set a trap. If we can lure them into a narrow passage, we can use the ship's agility to outmaneuver them." "Sounds risky," Jax replied, his brow furrowing. "But it might be our best shot." "Then let's do it," Elara said, determination flooding her veins. "Mira, keep monitoring their position. We need to know when they're close." As Mira worked, Elara and Jax plotted their course through the nebula. The swirling gases created a labyrinthine network of passages, and Elara felt a surge of adrenaline as they approached a particularly narrow corridor. "This is it," she said, her voice low. "We'll wait for them to follow us in, then hit them with everything we've got." "Ready when you are," Jax replied, his eyes focused on the scanners. "Just say the word." The minutes stretched into an eternity as they waited, the tension in the cockpit palpable. Elara could feel her crew's anxiety, but she held her ground, reminding herself that they had faced danger before. They were a family, and together they could overcome anything. "Captain, I'm picking up their ship on the scanners," Mira said, her voice sharp with urgency. "They're closing in fast." "Now!" Elara shouted, her heart racing. "Into the corridor." Jax yanked the controls, and the Vigilant shot forward, diving into the narrow passage. The ship's engines roared as they navigated the tight space, the walls of the nebula closing in around them. Elara's pulse quickened as she glanced back at the view screen, watching as Zarek's ship followed them into the trap. "Hold steady," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We need to wait for the right moment." The pirate vessel barreled into the corridor, its bulkier frame struggling to maneuver in the confined space. Elara could see the glint of its weapons charging, and she knew they had only seconds before Zarek realized their plan. "Now, Jax, cut the engines," Elara shouted. Jax complied, and the Vigilant came to a sudden halt, the ship's inertia throwing them forward. The pirate ship, unable to stop in time, careened past them, its weapons firing wildly into the nebula. "Fire at will," Elara commanded, her voice rising above the din. "Target their engines." The Vigilant responded with a volley of laser fire, the beams slicing through the mist and striking the pirate ship's engines. The impact sent a shockwave through the corridor, and Elara felt a surge of triumph as she watched the enemy vessel falter. "Direct hit," Jax shouted, his eyes wide with excitement. "They're losing power." "Keep firing," Elara urged, her heart racing. "We can't let up now." The crew worked in unison, their movements fluid and precise as they unleashed a barrage of fire on the pirate ship. The cockpit was filled with the sounds of alarms and the crackle of energy as the Vigilant danced around the larger vessel, using its agility to avoid return fire. "Captain, they're trying to regain control," Mira warned, her voice tense. "We need to finish this quickly." "Jax, target their weapon systems." The Vigilant surged through the nebula, its hull shimmering with the remnants of the battle. Elara Vos stood at the helm, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she surveyed the damage. The cockpit was alive with the sounds of alarms and the frantic chatter of her crew, but amidst the chaos, a sense of determination burned brightly within her. "Captain, we've disabled their engines," Jax shouted, his voice filled with exhilaration. "They're adrift." "Good work, Jax," Elara replied, her heart racing. "But we can't let our guard down. Zarek will be desperate now. Prepare for a counterattack." "On it." Jax's fingers flew over the controls, his focus unwavering. "Mira, keep an eye on their systems. I don't want any surprises." "Already monitoring," Mira said, her eyes glued to the scanners. "They're trying to reroute power to their weapons. We need to finish this before they get a chance." Ilara nodded, her mind racing. "Let's move in for the final strike. Jax, take us in close. We'll hit them hard and fast." As the Vigilant closed the distance, Ilara felt a surge of confidence. They had fought hard to get to this point, and she wasn't about to let Zarek escape. The pirate captain had underestimated them, and now it was time to turn the tables. "Prepare torpedoes," Ilara commanded, her voice steady. "We'll take out their weapon systems first." "Ready when you are," Jax replied, his eyes sharp with focus. "Just give the word." "Now," Ilara shouted, her heart pounding as she pressed the launch button. The torpedoes shot forward, streaking through the nebula like shooting stars. The impact was immediate, a brilliant explosion lighting up the darkness as the torpedoes struck the pirate ship's weapons array. "Direct hit," Mira exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "They're losing power. Keep the pressure on," Ilara urged, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The pirate ship was reeling, smoke billowing from its damaged systems. "We can't let them regroup." As the Vigilant danced around the crippled vessel, Ilara felt a surge of triumph. They had fought against the odds, and now victory was within reach. But just as she began to relax, a warning alarm blared through the cockpit. "Captain, they're activating their emergency thrusters," Jax shouted, his voice tense. "They're trying to escape." "Not on my watch," Ilara replied, her determination hardening. "Mira, can you jam their communications?" "Working on it," Mira said, her fingers flying over the console. "If I can cut them off from their crew, it'll buy us more time." "Do it," Ilara commanded, her heart racing. "Jax, prepare to intercept." The Vigilant surged forward, closing the distance as the pirate ship attempted to maneuver away. Ilara's pulse quickened as she watched the enemy vessel struggle to regain control. They were vulnerable now, and she intended to capitalize on that weakness. "Jamming their communications now," Mira announced, her voice steady. "They're cut off from their crew." "Perfect," Ilara said, her eyes narrowing. "Let's finish this." With a swift motion, she directed the Vigilant to flank the pirate ship, positioning them for a final strike. The cockpit was filled with the sounds of alarms and the distant thrum of energy as they prepared to unleash their firepower. "Ready to fire," Jax shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "Just say the word." "Fire," Ilara commanded, her heart racing as the ship unleashed a torrent of laser fire. The beams struck the pirate vessel with precision, tearing through its hull and igniting a series of explosions. The view screen lit up with the brilliance of the blasts, and Ilara felt a surge of exhilaration. They had done it. They had turned the tide against Zarek Thorn and his crew. "Direct hits across the board," Jax exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "They're taking heavy damage." "Keep firing," Ilara urged, her voice rising above the din. "We can't let up now." As the Vigilant continued its assault, Ilara felt a sense of purpose wash over her. They had fought hard to protect their ship and their crew, and now they were on the brink of victory. But just as she began to relax, a chilling voice crackled through the comms. "Captain Voss," Zarek's voice echoed, dripping with malice. "You think you've won? This isn't over." Ilara's heart sank as she,